You're living on a floating city with 5,000 people, sleeping 18 inches from someone else's face, working 16-hour shifts in 120-degree heat, and you haven't seen land in 87 days. Welcome to life on a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier, where the food is terrible, the sleep is worse, and the aircraft launching 30 feet above your head are loaded with enough explosives to level a city block. You're not getting a bedroom. You're getting a coffin rack. A bed space 6 feet long, 2.5 feet wide, and 18 inches tall. That's smaller than a coffin. You share this space with 60 other people in a berthing compartment. The guy below you hears every time you move. You have a curtain for privacy. That's it. But here's what makes it worse. You're berthing directly below the flight deck. Every time an FA-18 launches with afterburners, the entire room shakes. This happens every 45 seconds during flight operations, which run 16 hours per day. The noise is 150 decibels, louder than a gunshot. You wear earplugs to sleep. It doesn't help. Your personal storage is a locker 2 feet wide and 3 feet tall. Everything you own for 9 months fits in there. Civilian clothes, toiletries, electronics, photos, all of it. If it doesn't fit, it doesn't come. People bring photos of family, printed books, and handheld gaming devices. Your phone has no signal 200 miles from land. Your laptop can't connect to anything. Entertainment is whatever you brought that doesn't need internet. The berthing is also where you shower. There are communal bathrooms called heads with 8 nada shower stalls for 60-odd people. During shift changes, there's a line. You have 5 minutes. The water is desalinated seawater, so it doesn't quite feel like real water. Shampoo doesn't lather right. Soap doesn't rinse clean. You get used to it. There are no weekends on a carrier. There are no days off. You work every single day for the entire deployment, which typically lasts 9. Your standard shift is 12 now to 16 hours, but during high-tempo operations, you work until the work is finished, which can mean 20-plus-hour days for weeks. If you're flight deck crew, you're working the most dangerous job in the world. The flight deck is called the roof, and it's 4.5 acres of organized chaos where everything can kill you. Aircraft are taking off and landing every 45 seconds. Each plane weighs 30 to 50 tons and is moving at speeds that will instantly kill anyone in the way. Jet engines produce exhaust at 1,000 degrees that will melt your skin off. Propellers will decapitate you if you walk into them. Arresting wires, the cables that catch landing aircraft, are under 50,000 pounds of tension and will cut you in half if they snap. Flight deck crew wear color-coded jerseys so everyone knows their job. Yellow shirts direct aircraft. Purple shirts fuel them. Red shirts handle weapons and ordnance, meaning they're loading missiles and bombs worth millions of dollars onto jets while those jets are running. Green shirts maintain catapults and arresting gear. Brown shirts are plane captains who do final checks before launch. Blue shirts are elevator operators and tractor drivers who move aircraft around the deck. Every one of these jobs requires absolute focus because mistakes are fatal. In 2016, a sailor on the USS Eisenhower was sucked into an FA-18's engine intake. He survived only because he was wearing a safety harness that caught before he reached the turbine blades. In 2017, a sailor on the USS Theodore Roosevelt was blown overboard by jet exhaust and lost at sea. These aren't rare freak accidents. They're constant risks that flight deck crews face every single day. You eat in the mess deck, which is essentially a giant cafeteria that serves 18,000 meals per day. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, and midnight rations for the night shift. The food is mass-produced by Navy cooks using industrial equipment. It's edible. That's the standard. Here's what you're eating for 9 months straight. Breakfast is powdered eggs, instant oatmeal, and bread. Lunch is some variation of chicken, rice, and vegetables. Dinner is mystery meat, mashed potatoes, and more vegetables. Midrats is leftovers from dinner plus sandwich fixings. Everything is cooked in bulk, kept in warmers, and served cafeteria style. Fresh fruit and vegetables run out within 2 to 3 weeks of leaving port. After that, it's all frozen or canned. The food isn't bad. It's just monotonous. You're eating the same 15-20 menu items on rotation for months. Chicken every Monday, tacos on Tuesday, pizza on Friday. The Navy tries to break up the monotony with special meals on Sundays and holidays. Steak night happens once a month. Lobster tail on Christmas, if you're lucky. But 95% of your meals are the same industrial cafeteria food. And everyone eats together. Admirals and seamen eat the same food in the same mess deck at the same tables. Officers have a separate wardroom, but the food is identical. There's no special treatment. Everyone suffers equally. Your entire existence revolves around watch rotations, scheduled work shifts that rotate so the ship never sleeps. The standard rotation is 5 hours on watch, 10 hours off. But those 10 hours aren't free time. You have maintenance duties, training requirements, cleaning assignments, and equipment checks. Realistically, you get 6 hours to sleep, shower, eat, and do laundry before you're back on watch. But here's what destroys your sleep schedule. Watch rotations move every day. Today, you work 0800 Mayo 1300 and 2000 Nios 0100. Tomorrow you work 0200 Mayos 0700 and 1400 to 1900. Your body never adjusts because your schedule changes every 24 hours. You're perpetually jet-lagged. Sleep deprivation is universal. Everyone is running on 4 to 6 hours of broken sleep per day for months. And you can't just sleep whenever you're tired. There are ship-wide announcements called 1MC. Constantly. Flight quarters. Flight quarters. All personnel man your flight quarters stations. Sweepers. Man your brooms. General quarters. General quarters. All hands man your battle stations. Day and night. If you're trying to sleep during flight operations, you're getting woken up every hour by announcements. A standard carrier deployment is 6-9 months. The record is the USS Nimitz in 2020, which spent 321 consecutive days at sea, nearly 11 months without pulling into port. You leave Virginia or San Diego, cross an ocean, and spend months operating in the Persian Gulf, South China Sea, or Mediterranean. You might get 2-3 port visits during the entire deployment. Most sailors go 60-90 days between seeing land. No cell service, no connection to the outside world, but it's heavily restricted. You get 30 minutes of computer time per week to send emails through the ship's system. Messages are limited to text only. No photos, no attachments, no large files. The system is slow, unreliable, and monitored. Personal phone calls are almost impossible, unless you're in port. You stay connected through letters. Old-school physical mail. The ship receives mail drops every 2 to 4 weeks when supply ships rendezvous at sea. Getting a letter from home is the highlight of your week. Some sailors go months without receiving anything. The isolation is crushing, and you miss everything. Birthdays, anniversaries, births, funerals, your kids' first words, your partner's graduation. Life keeps happening back home and you're 8,000 miles away with no way to participate. Sailors miss an average of 65% of their children's lives during their first 4 years of service. That's just the math of deployments. An aircraft carrier holds 3 million gallons of jet fuel, thousands of tons of ordnance including missiles and bombs, and nuclear reactors producing 200 megawatts of power. You're living on top of this. The entire ship is a potential explosion waiting for one mistake. Fire is the deadliest threat. In 1967, a fire on the USS Forrestal killed 134 sailors and destroyed 21 aircraft. It started with an electrical malfunction that launched a rocket on deck, which hit a fuel tank, which started a massive fire that spread faster than crews could contain it. The forestall fire is why modern carriers have extensive fire suppression systems and why every sailor is trained as a firefighter regardless of their job specialty. General quarters drills happen constantly. The alarm sounds, you grab your gear and sprint to your assigned station. You practice damage control, fighting fires, sealing hull breaches, treating casualties. These aren't optional exercises. They're the difference between surviving catastrophic damage and becoming the next forestall. But here's what most people don't realize. Carriers are attacked regularly by submarines during exercises and occasionally by actual threats. In 2006, a Chinese submarine surfaced undetected in the middle of a U.S. carrier strike group during exercises in the Pacific. The submarine could have fired torpedoes before anyone knew it was there. In 2015, a French submarine sank the USS Theodore Roosevelt during training by getting close enough to simulate a torpedo attack without being detected. Carriers are powerful, but they're not invincible. This is what carriers exist for: launching and recovering aircraft around the clock. A Nimitz-class carrier can launch an aircraft every 45 seconds and recover one every 60 seconds. During sustained operations, they launch 150 tons, 200 sorties per day. This happens on a 4.5-acre flight deck with 75 aircraft, 300 flight deck crew, and zero margin for error. Aircraft are attached to a shuttle that's connected to a steam catapult under the deck. The catapult accelerates a 30-ton aircraft from 0 to 170 miles per hour in 2 seconds across 300 feet. The G-forces pin pilots back in their seats. And this happens every 45 seconds for 16 hours straight. Landing is worse. Pilots are landing on a moving ship at night in bad weather with no visibility. The carrier deck is 1,000 feet long, but the landing area is 500 feet. Pilots aim for a 20-foot by 50-foot box while traveling at 150 miles per hour. They catch one of 4 arresting wires with a tailhook, and the wire stops the aircraft in 2 seconds from 150 miles per hour to 0. Miss the wires, and you're going into the ocean. The accident rate is why flight deck crew call it the most dangerous 4.5 acres on Earth. Aircraft crash. People die. In 2017, 7 sailors died when the USS Fitzgerald collided with a merchant ship. In 2019, an FSA-18 crashed off the U.S. Carl Vinson during routine operations, killing both pilots. These aren't historical events, they're constant risks. After 60-90 days at sea, the carrier pulls into port. You have 48-72 hours of liberty, shore leave, before the ship departs again. This is your only break, your only chance to see something other than gray steel and ocean. Everyone goes insane. Sailors flood into whatever city they're visiting and immediately hit bars, restaurants, and hotels. People who've been drinking desalinated water for 3 months are suddenly drinking beer like it's the last beer on Earth. People who've been eating the same 15 meals for 3 months are eating everything they can find. People who've been sleeping in coffin racks are paying $200 for hotel rooms just to sleep in a real bed for one night. And everyone is buying internet access. The first thing sailors do in port is find Wi-Fi and spend hours on their phones catching up with family. Watching YouTube, scrolling social media, anything to reconnect with the world. 2 hours of phone calls. 3 hours of video chat. Downloading every movie and TV show they can before going back to the ship. But port visits are rare. Most deployments include only 2-3 stops. You might hit Bahrain for 72 hours, Dubai for 48 hours, Singapore, if you're lucky. Then it's back to sea for another 60-90 days. The port visits are incredible, but they're brief escapes before returning to the grind. The strange thing about carrier life is that despite the terrible conditions, most sailors develop intense bonds with their shipmates. You're suffering together. You're working 16-hour days together. You're missing home together. That shared experience creates relationships that people maintain for decades after leaving the Navy. Everyone knows everyone's business. In a community of 5,000 living in close quarters, there are no secrets. Relationship drama spreads through the ship in hours. Someone gets promoted. Everyone knows. Someone gets in trouble. Everyone knows. Someone gets a Dear John letter from a partner back home. Everyone knows. The lack of privacy extends to everything. But that intimacy also means support. When sailors are struggling, missing home, dealing with family emergencies, facing mental health issues, their shipmates are there. The Navy has counselors and chaplains, but most sailors rely on each other. Your division becomes your family because they're the only people who understand what you're going through. Life on an aircraft carrier is objectively terrible by civilian standards. You sleep in conditions worse than most prisons. You eat institutional food for months. You're isolated from everyone you care about. You're constantly in danger. You make $30,000, $40,000 per year as a junior enlisted sailor doing this. And yet re-enlistment rates are around 60%. More than half of sailors finish their first deployment and sign up for another. Why? Because carriers provide purpose, community, and experiences that civilian life doesn't offer. You're part of something bigger than yourself. You're operating the most advanced warships ever built. You're projecting American power around the world. You're living through hardship that most people can't imagine and coming out stronger. Carrier life isn't for everyone. It's brutal, exhausting, and tests you in ways nothing else does. But for the people who survive it, it's often the defining experience of their lives. They'll spend the rest of their days telling stories about the time they lived on a floating city, launched aircraft into combat, and proved they could handle anything. That's what life on an aircraft carrier is really like. Not the recruiting poster version, the real version, where the conditions are harsh, the work is endless, and the sailors who do it are tougher than they ever thought they could be.